Stringbean, the famous guy from the Grand Ole Opry, and his wife Estelle got murdered in their home back in 1973. He was really short, barely over 5 feet tall, always wore suspenders, and had a big grin on his face. He made America laugh every Saturday night. David Stringbean Aikman wasn't just a funny banjo player. He was a big part of early country music fun. From his famous shows on the Grand Ole Opry to his funny parts on Hee Haw, Stringbean became a real star. Those huge pants, his quick jokes, and his fast banjo playing. People loved him not just because he was talented, but because he was real and honest. But behind that friendly country style was a guy who had a tough life. He grew up in the country in Kentucky during the Great Depression, so he didn't trust many people and kept his money and his life very private. That careful way might have made him a target. In 1973, something awful happened. Stringbean and his wife Estelle were found shot dead in their simple Tennessee cabin. The whole country music world was shocked, and police soon found 2 men who did it. They got arrested. There were trials. It looked like justice happened. But people still had questions. How did the killers know exactly when Stringbean would come home that night? Why did they tear up the cabin but leave most of the money behind? And the scariest question of all, was someone else part of it who never got caught? For years, people talked about different ideas. New clues came up. Fans guessed what really happened. Some thought it was just a robbery that went bad. Others thought there was something bigger and darker behind it. And now, after all these years of wondering, we finally know the truth. The real story of what happened that night in the hills of Ridgetop has come out. And by the end of this, the mystery of Stringbean's murder will be solved. By the early 1970s, Stringbean was more than just a funny guy on TV. He was a true legend in country music and on television. Every week, people all over America watched him tell jokes and play banjo on Hee Haw, sharing his mountain humor and great music with everyone. But even with all his fame, Stringbean stayed the same. He still lived like a simple guy from the hills. No fancy cars, no big house, just a small log cabin out in the country in Tennessee. While other stars bought huge homes and ate at fancy places, Stringbean and Estelle raised chickens, chopped wood, and made plain meals. He was old school with money too. He grew up during the Great Depression when banks went broke and people lost everything. He didn't trust banks at all. Instead, he carried lots of cash with him and hid money in different spots around their cabin. People around town and other musicians talked about it. Stringbean didn't put money in banks. He hid his cash in the walls, under the floor, even behind pictures. Whether it was all true or a little stretched, those stories spread fast, and some people started thinking they could take it. Even though he was popular and had money, Stringbean stayed careful around strangers. He had been robbed once while traveling, and that made him even more careful. He and Estelle didn't have many visitors, kept their friends close, and stuck to the same routine every day. On Saturday nights, they did their show at the Opry, then drove home to their quiet cabin. That routine made them feel safe, but it also made them easy to predict, and that put them in danger. What almost nobody knew back then was that someone was watching and waiting and listening while Stringbean's jokes made the whole country happy. Someone close to his world was planning something bad. The talk about hidden money, the lonely house, no alarms or guards. It all looked too tempting for some people to ignore. Stringbean and Estelle worked hard their whole lives to build a simple, honest, peaceful life. But the very things that made them feel safe, their simple ways, their regular routine, and their trust, ended up being why their lives got taken away. And on one quiet November night, those dangers came right through their front door. On the night of November 10, 1973, Stringbean did his usual show at the Grand Ole Opry. People who saw him said he was happy, joking around with other performers backstage and playing his banjo like always. Estelle was there with him, smiling and cheering him on. After the show, they said goodbye to everyone, got in their plain car, and drove the same road back to their home in Ridgetop, Tennessee. They had driven that way hundreds of times. But that night was different. Without them knowing, two men were already inside their cabin, hiding in the dark. John Brown and his cousin Marvin Brown were small-time crooks who had done some stealing before. They heard the same stories going around Nashville that Stringbean kept thousands of dollars in cash hidden in his house. The Browns thought it would be an easy job. They knew his Saturday night schedule. They knew he would be gone, so they broke in, searched the place for money, and waited for the couple to come home. When Stringbean and Estelle got there just after midnight, they didn't find quiet, they found horror. The exact details inside the cabin are still argued about, but what we know is terrible. Stringbean walked in first and got shot and killed right near the door. Estelle heard the noise, ran from the car toward the house, but got shot outside while trying to get away or help her husband. The next morning she was found face down near the driveway, still holding her purse. The news hit Nashville and country music hard. Fans couldn't believe the sweet, funny man they watched every week got killed like that. Other musicians were heartbroken. Country music people were like family, and losing Stringbean and Estelle felt like losing family. Police got there fast and were shocked at the scene. The house was messed up, but funny enough, the robbers missed most of the cash Stringbean had hidden. Later, police found thousands of dollars behind a brick chimney and inside walls. The killers got almost nothing. Nothing but blood and a path that led straight to them. While everyone was soured, a bigger fear started growing. If someone as nice and low-key as Stringbean could get hurt, who was really safe? The Browns took more than 2 lives. They took away the peaceful feeling from all of Nashville. The arrests happened fast. Just days after the murders, police focused on John A. Brown and his cousin Marvin. It was easy to spot them. They had criminal records and people heard them bragging about new money right after the killings. Their ties to the area and sudden cash made them look guilty right away. John Brown got arrested first. He said he was innocent at first, but soon broke during questions and told a story full of holes. At the trial, the ugly details came out, and they were as bad as they were pointless. Prosecutors said the murders weren't just about greed, they were planned and cold. The Browns brought guns. They waited quietly for hours. They didn't plan to let anyone live. The trial got everyone's attention. Stringbean's fans, music friends, and regular people packed the courtroom wanting justice. What came out was a sad story of jealousy and need crashing into innocent, regular lives. The Browns didn't just kill, they destroyed a legacy. A guy who came from poor mountain life to become one of America's favorite entertainers got shot over talk about hidden money. John Brown got 198 years in prison. His cousin Marvin, who had a smaller part and helped the police, got less time. For a while, it felt like justice was done. But as years went by, things got more complicated. Decades later, in 2014, after more than 40 years in prison, John Brown got parole. That made country music people really angry. Stringbean's friends, including Hee Haw cast and Opry stars, spoke out against letting him go. How could someone who did such a mean, planned murder walk free? To a lot of people, it felt like justice got turned around. Brown served time, but for those who loved Stringbean, no amount of time could make up for the loss. His release showed that court justice and real fairness don't always match. Even worse, at the parole hearing, Brown never said he was sorry. He kept a fuzzy story, didn't admit guilt straight, and gave no comfort to the families. For fans and friends, it wasn't just about jail time. It was about no real responsibility. The man who took Stringbean's life never truly owned up to it. Not in truth, not in sadness, not even in words. After the murders, people started looking at what Stringbean and Estelle left behind, and it was messier than anyone thought. Even with his fame on Hee Haw and the Grand Ole Opry for years, Stringbean was super careful with money. He didn't trust banks because of the Great Depression, and he kept big amounts of cash hidden at home. That habit turned out to be deadly. When police searched the Eggman cabin after the murders, they found thousands of dollars in weird spots, behind bricks, in walls, under floors. Some people think he had almost $20,000 there. That was a lot in 1973, especially for his simple life. But there was no will, no clear plan for his things. The sadness wasn't just feelings. It became a big mess with money and legal stuff. Estelle's family got most of it, but it wasn't easy. Lawsuits happened. Talk about more hidden money went on for years. Even treasure hunters broke into the old cabby. And long after, sure more cash was there. The house, once a peaceful spot in the Tennessee hills, turned into a sign of Stringbean's careful ways and the weird pull his murder had. Then there were the personal losses. Stringbean and Estelle had no kids. Their closest family tried to handle things quietly, but the attention never stopped. The story became like a legend, and even the land felt touched by the tragedy. Friends in country music tried to help. Roy Acuff, Minnie Pearl, Grandpa Jones, they all talked about Stringbean in public, trying to make things safer for everyone. Some pushed for better security at the Grand Ole Opry and more protection for stars who lived simply. But nothing really fixed the hurt. The money mystery became part of his story. A man who didn't trust banks, lived plain even when successful, and got killed for money the killers couldn't find. It was a sad twist that covered up his music, his jokes, and the life he shared with Estelle. For many, the questions about his money were just another way to see how much got lost when he died. In the years after Stringbean's murder, country music people tried to understand the loss. For those who knew him, it was more than losing a co-worker. It was the awful end of a time full of kindness, humility, and small-town goodness. The tragedy hurt extra because it didn't just take Stringbean and Estelle. It broke the idea that Opry stars were safe and away from outside dangers. Many friends said Stringbean was a gentle guy, always ready with a joke, and hardly ever without his banjo. Even with more fame on his and years on the Opry stage, he never acted big. He still grew veggies in his yard, hunted squirrels, and went to local church things. He lived like an old-time guy in the best way. Grandpa Jones, one of Stringbean's best friends and co-stars, was the one who found their bodies. That memory stayed with him forever. In talks, he would get choked up remembering that night. His sadness was like a scar that never went away. Other friends like Minnie Pearl and Roy Clark felt the same. The loss wasn't just sad. It felt close to home. But even while grieving, Stringbean's memory kept going. His way of playing banjo and telling jokes was special. He mixed funny stuff with old mountain banjo music, making a character that was silly but also very real. Younger bluegrass and country players say he inspired them, especially how he connected with people through warmth and honesty. In 2001, the Country Music Hall of Fame gave Stringbean a special exhibit with his banjo, his clothes, and old photos from his time with Bill Monroe. It was a rare thank you for a guy who helped shape country music's fun side. The tribute was touching, a quiet way to say that even though his life ended badly, his music and spirit still lived in Nashville. But even with all the honors and time passing, a quiet worry stayed. Something about the case never felt completely finished. The arrests happened. A man did his time, but the pain never really went away. The questions never stopped. And the feeling that something special got stolen from country music stayed right there under everything. The conviction of John and Marvin Brown changed things and didn't change them. In 1973, just weeks after the murders, police arrested the cousins, both with records of small crimes and local problems. The investigation showed the Browns heard stories about Stringbean's hidden cash, something lots of locals knew about. They thought the quiet star kept tens of thousands in his small cabin, in coffee cans, under floors, inside walls. To them it sounded dead like easy money, but it wasn't. When they broke into the Eggman home, they didn't get what they hoped. Court papers say they waited to jump Stringbean and Estelle when they came back from the Opry. The fight was quick and deadly. Stringbean got shot right outside the front door. Estelle, scared and trying to run, got shot near the back of the house. The killers left with almost no money, less than $200, and a few small things. It was a pointless crime with nothing to gain but heartbreak. At trial, the proof was strong. A witness linked them to the scene, and stolen things got found with them. The jury didn't take long. John Brown got 2 life sentences in a row. Marvin got convicted too, but died in prison later. It looked like justice happened. And yet for many in the community, the case never felt right. Why didn't they find more money? Was someone else in on it who never got caught? Did the Browns do it alone, or did someone else push them with better info about Stringbean's ways? Even years later, those questions stick around. In a big surprise in 2014, after more than 40 years in prison, John Brown got out on parole. His release made lots of people in Nashville and elsewhere really mad. Grandpa Jones's family and others close to Stringbean spoke against it. To them, the murder wasn't old history. It was still a fresh hurt. John Brown said he was sorry that he found God in prison and wasn't the same person. But no sorry words or regret could fix what happened that cold November night in 1973. Stringbean and Estelle were gone. Their lives got taken for nothing, and the hurt they left was huge. For fans and friends, the Browns weren't just bad guys. They stood for a world that got colder, more dangerous, less trusting, and their names stay tied forever to one of country music's saddest stories, full of violence and loss. Country music deep. Stars who used to leave doors open and talk to fans freely started putting up fences, getting alarms, and thinking hard about safety. In many ways, the simple trusting time died with Stringbean. But as years became decades, a strange story grew about the man and the money he never put in banks. Even after the murder and trial, people kept saying Stringbean hid thousands of dollars on his land. Some said in his mattress. Others said buried in jars around the yard. In the months after he died, people looking for treasure came to the property, digging by trees, ripping up floors, searching walls in the Aikman home. Most found nothing. But then something happened. In 1996, more than 20 years after the murder, workers fixing up Stringbean's old cabin found over $20,000 in cash. The money was so old and worn that most couldn't be used anymore. It was hidden so good that even police in 1973 missed it. This big find got people talking about the case again and proved what many thought. Stringbean's fear of banks wasn't just odd. It was how he lived. The discovery brought new questions. Did the killers know exactly where some money was? Or were they just chasing stories? Too rushed and careless to find the real hiding spots? Did someone else know about more and take it before police got there? Is more money still hidden somewhere? Those questions became part of Stringbean's story. One full of music, laughs, and sadness. The cabin where he and Estelle lived, once a quiet getaway, turned into a kind of sad special place. Some fans visited, leaving flowers or notes. Others just came to think. The Grand Ole Opry kept his memory going too. His banjo stayed on show for years, and they did special performances for him. For many, losing Stringbean wasn't just about him. It showed how even good people can be in danger in a changing world. His story reminded fans that fame doesn't keep you safe. Being kind doesn't protect you. And living quiet isn't always secure. But it also reminded them of something good. Legacy is about how you live, not how you die. And Stringbean Aikman lived full of joy, humility, laughter, and music that still touches people who remember. In the end, the story of David Stringbean Aikman is a real American sad tale.